Episode 87. The Silence Between Us. The world I live in is very different. A world very far away from the noise of traffic sounds, firecrackers, airplanes taking off or landing, hawkers shouting to sell fresh vegetables and fruits, loudspeakers blaring out songs during marriages and festivals, and the sound of the TV or the radio. It is seldom that someone can enter my world, only if he or she is qualified to enter. Someone has to be qualified to enter my world? Strange, isn't it? Well, truth be told, you need to know my language, sign language, to enter into my world. Because I cannot hear anything. Yup, you guessed it right. I'm deaf. I communicate with my parents and siblings through this sign language only. Initially, I was sent to a special school for the hearing impaired. But when I stepped into the 5th standard, my family thought it was time to slowly introduce me to the big, bad, harsh world outside. So they admitted me to a normal school, where I became the odd one out. Obviously, no one knew the sign language there. And when they found out that I cannot be talked to like normal children, they simply gave me the cold shoulder. I don't blame them really. When adults' patience runs out dealing with a deaf person, and these were just 10 or 11-year-olds who had perhaps met a deaf girl for the first time in their lives. I therefore made very few friends. Some classmates avoided me, some ignored me, some openly made fun of me. Some refused to sit next to me on the same bench. Only one or two were very curious and they tried to befriend me. Most of the teachers were unkind to me. They had to prepare special explanatory notes for me, and they weren't happy doing that. Without these explanatory notes, I would be at a terrible loss for understanding maths formulae or science or geography. My bench partner would be instructed to keep the textbook open and keep on indicating with his or her finger which portion the teacher was dealing with. Rohan was one boy in the class who never objected to sit next to me. Perhaps because no one else wanted to sit next to him either. I didn't know why Rohan was avoided by classmates and teachers. He always had this hard, tough look on his face. But he never ignored me. He would place a finger on the timetable to clarify which subject period were we going to have, or he would pull out a text related to that subject so that I was in sync with the rest of the class. But I hardly ever saw Rohan smile. God knows what storms he was battling inside. After the exams, when the report cards would be distributed, the teachers would always give Rohan a long lecture. What was being told, I could never understand. But I could see that Rohan hated these report card sessions. He would always come back at his place with a very defiant look. I was sure that he was forced to come to school every day. Whenever I caught him in a foul mood like this, I would just keep my head down and not dare to look at him. Every now and then Rohan would get punished for not completing his homework. Which was strange really, because Rohan was brilliant, especially at mathematics. He could solve math problems so easily. But if Koshi ma'am, our maths teacher, asked him a question, he would never reply. I remember a complicated sum of fractions that Koshi teacher had given to us. 40 heads peered down on their desks, desperately trying to solve it. After breaking my head over it for some time, I stole a glance at Rohan's notebook. I was shocked to see that he had already solved the sum and was now quietly doodling on the last page of his notebook. Just then, Koshi teacher called me to solve the sum on the blackboard. The solution and the method that I had seen in Rohan's notebook were fresh in my mind. I began to solve it. Though I couldn't hear anything, yet I could sense that there was total silence in the class. When I finished solving the sum, I saw 41 pairs of eyes glued onto the blackboard, the 41st being that of Koshi teacher. The entire class instantly broke out in a collective applause. They were genuinely surprised and happy that I could solve the sum. My gaze automatically went towards Rohan, but Rohan's head was lowered and he was fiddling with his pencil. I felt very bad. I wanted to tell everyone that it was Rohan who had solved it. Koshi teacher signed superb with her fingers. I felt even more guilty. I hastily picked up a chalk again and wrote on the blackboard, "Sum solved by Rohan." The entire class turned towards Rohan, and everyone was more surprised than pleased. Rohan glanced up and read what I had written on the blackboard. For a long minute, he stupidly stared at what I had written on the blackboard, and then at me. To my great dismay, Rohan just vanished after that day. I knew my classmates used to whisper about him, but of course, I couldn't hear anything at all. It was my other friend Kalyani who told me a little through written notes at the back of my English notebook. Rohan's dad in jail, their neighbor harassing his sister, so his dad hit neighbor. Neighbor died. Sister committed suicide. I wondered very often what had happened to Rohan and where was he. Years later, I became an architect specializing in interiors. I got placed at a firm where they didn't mind my disability. It was here that I found my friend for a lifetime, Shalini. Together, we completed many projects for our firm. One evening, Shalini came over all pumped up in my cabin. She was carrying the prospectus of Wakefield Hotels Limited. We had spent a month designing their new cottage resort and were eagerly waiting for a positive response. Shalini signed to me, "Got the contract. We'll have to go to Ooty." In her excitement, Shalini began to speak energetically. I could lip read partially what she was saying. Ooty will, wonderful, this time of the year. Imagine one full week. Clients also excited. The stay at Ooty was indeed awesome. We rented a picturesque little cottage for a full week. A day before we had to fly back, Shalini and I visited a popular local restaurant at Ooty for dinner. Midway during the dinner, Shalini suddenly frowned and stopped speaking. I signed to her, "What?" "There's a guy sitting in that corner table who seems to be watching us. I saw him yesterday also. No, don't turn now. But have a look at him when we leave the restaurant." We both became a little nervous and anxious. A little later, I stole a glance at him. His head was lowered and he was fiddling with his mobile. He looked strangely familiar. Suddenly, the man looked up at me and stared for a few seconds. Before I could react, he swiftly got up and left the restaurant. Next evening, on our way to Coimbatore Airport, there was hardly any traffic, except for a few bikers. The cool breeze touched my face and I dozed off. Suddenly, when the taxi stopped with a jerk, I was jolted out of my sleep. It was pitch dark outside. I couldn't make out at all where were we. I stretched my hand and touched Shalini. She pressed my hand, and by the pressure of her hands, I understood that she was scared and panicky. I remembered a light switch above us, and I jabbed at it. In the dim light of the car bulb, I saw that the driver was pulling Shalini out. I could sense that Shalini was shouting for help. But we were in some goddamn deserted place where I couldn't see a light for miles together. I jumped out of the car and ran towards Shalini. I wanted to shout help, but I couldn't bring out any sound from my throat. Not many people knew that I was only deaf, not dumb. I could speak, but years of not speaking or using my voice for conversations had made me almost dumb. But I had to do it now. Shalini was being dragged. That fellow was going to hurt her, or maybe kill her. I closed my eyes and gathered all the courage that I could, and filling my lungs with air, shouted as loudly as possible, "Chhod do, Shalini, run, Shalini." That fellow was stunned, as was Shalini. None of them knew that I could speak. They stared at me horrified. My throat had gone dry. I began to sign desperately. "Why are you hurting my friend? You need money? Take mine. Take all. Take everything." I only remember something heavy hitting my head. Everything blacked out then. When I opened my eyes, Shalini was peering down at me. Her eyes were teary and her head was bandaged. She immediately signed to me, "Are you okay?" My head hurt and I felt groggy. I went into a deep sleep again. It is quite strange, really, Miss Shalini. These two had become the biggest headache of nearly half a dozen police stations of the area. We know the name of only one of them, Manoj. There are 17 cases of loot, theft, robbery, and even molestation against these two. They lure women into frequenting isolated places and then take away all their belongings. God knows what happened today. The one who was driving your taxi was this guy, Manoj. And as per their plan, he must have stopped the taxi on your way to Coimbatore. We have no idea what happened next. But we found Manoj's body in a deserted area in the deep jungle. Someone drove the taxi with the two of you injured and unconscious into the hospital emergency. The authorities there alerted us. The fellow who took you there vanished immediately afterwards. We looked for him and tried to scan his face in the CCTV also, but he had kept his head lowered all the time, so we don't know who he was. The only thing we have found in the taxi is an old mathematics notebook of class 5 of some school called Jesus and Mary Convent in New Delhi.